We are live. We are live. How's everybody doing? Friday Night SmackDown has just gone off the air. Of course, it was the main event, Hell in a Cell main event, between Rey Mysterio and Roman Reigns. Certainly, there is so much to talk about. This is what I was going to do. I wanted to do a quick post-show stream here. And don't worry, this isn't going to be a full show review or anything like that. We're just going to talk about the main event. We're just going to talk about the Hell in a Cell match. I'm going to keep this as short as relatively possible because obviously Dynamite's ongoing at the moment. So there's still loads going on as we, I guess, transition into what is just going to be the norm as we go forward when it comes to Friday nights. Obviously, once we get into the summer, I mean, we're in the summer now, but once we get into August, once we get into Rampage season, once AEW Rampage launches, we're going to get to this kind of weird point where everyone's going to have to sort of reevaluate what they're doing when it comes to post shows and stuff like that, because obviously you've got SmackDown, it's going to be for 2 hours, then you're going to have Rampage on the, for an hour as well. So certainly it's going to be a really interesting situation. Look, anyway, we're going to talk about the main event. We're going to talk about the Hell in a Cell match, Roman Reigns versus Rey Mysterio. Outcome expected, obviously, but certainly a very interesting match. We can see in the chat right there already, Desmond Allen's here, said, interesting actually, pretty alright show. Ashton Brown Hudson says, say my name please, Owen. Ashton. Well, I just did. So there you go. Anyway, let's talk about the main event so we can... We'll talk about the main event briefly for around 30 minutes or so. Then we can go and watch Dynamite. I always like to have, if you've got like a 30-minute buffer for a show, it always makes the show just go so much quicker. It's the best way to watch, like for Raw. It's such the best way to watch Monday Night Raw because then you just can get through the advertising breaks, and it's the only way to watch Raw. Otherwise, because if you're sitting through that show 3 hours, it's absolutely brutal. It's absolutely brutal. So obviously, we had this main event tonight. It was a Hell in a Cell match. First ever Hell in a Cell match in SmackDown history. First ever Hell in a Cell match in network television history. If you didn't know that, Michael Cole and Pat McAfee reminded you about 10 million times tonight on SmackDown. That was certainly interesting. I mean, I exaggerate there, but I'm probably not far off. I'm probably not far off when I say that they said that this was the first time on SmackDown history and the first time in network television history. Again, like 10 million times. I get it. It's a big moment for SmackDown. It's a big moment for Fox. It's a big moment for WWE. They love their first time evers. They love to do things for the first time. They love to do all that kind of stuff. But okay, I mean, we get it. We get it, right? We get it. Now, we spoke about this quite in depth here on the channel, so I don't want to repeat myself too much. We spoke about the decision in yesterday's, it depends where you are in the world, but Friday's WWE News video. We spoke about the decision to move the Hell in a Cell match between Mysterio and Reigns from Hell in a Cell to SmackDown tonight. And we spoke about it once again in the preview video that we did. And basically, the reports that have since come out, whether it's from PW Insider or whether it's from Fightful Select, when they've spoken about the reason to move Reigns and Mysterio to SmackDown, the reason is there isn't one. There isn't one, basically. Fightful Select released a report, and I think, again, it sort of piggybacked on a PW Insider report, and they basically went, yeah, there isn't really a reason. The decision was made Thursday afternoon. They had a meeting, a creative meeting, where they were discussing SmackDown, they were discussing Hell in a Cell, and they came out of that meeting saying Reigns versus Mysterio should happen on SmackDown. Why? No one really has an answer to that one, which is surprising. The one I'm going to go with, because we're not going to see Roman Reigns have a match. We're not going to see Reigns compete this Sunday at Hell in a Cell. Instead, we've got Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn. That's not taking place inside Hell in a Cell. We've got Bianca Belair versus Bayley inside Hell in a Cell, which I'm all for. I'm all for having female Hell in a Cell matches. The only thing I can think of as to why they decided to move Reigns and Mysterio to SmackDown is because, one, obviously ratings and viewership, and I'm sure Fox were very happy about that. And it's going to be fascinating to see what happens when it comes to the ratings and the viewership. Reportedly, USA Network isn't happy because they're saying, why would you move a Hell in a Cell match to Fox and you wouldn't move one to the USA Network? I guess they've asked time and time again for WWE to move a match like Hell in a Cell or to have a Hell in a Cell match on Monday Night Raw, and WWE have turned them down. And now they're looking at it saying, well, wait a minute, what's the difference between us and Fox? And obviously WWE doesn't want to PO the USA Network, specifically NBC Universal, because they've got a streaming licensing deal with Peacock. And obviously in the future, who knows, NBC Universal could be the company that buys WWE in a couple years' time. So they didn't really want to sour on that. So that's certainly an interesting story that I think is going to be expanded over the course of the next few days. Ultimately, like I said, I think the reason WWE might have looked at this as just to say, look, Reigns versus Mysterio, we know the outcome. Roman Reigns is going to win the match. Roman Reigns was always going to win the match, irrespective of it happening on SmackDown tonight or happening this Sunday at Hell in a Cell. Roman Reigns was always going to win this match. And maybe WWE just looked at it and said, look, Hell in a Cell, it's a gimmick event. They've got the Hell in a Cell matches and these brutal, violent matches, and it's got all of this history in terms of the match, not necessarily the event, but the match has all of this history. But they look at the show and they say, look, it's June. We're returning to touring next month. We're going to have live fans in attendance next month. WWE television in general right now seems very forgettable, passable. Everyone's looking towards July. Everyone's looking towards live fans returning. Everyone's looking to August, to SummerSlam, to Allegiant Stadium, to John Cena's return, to Edge's return, to possibly Daniel Bryan re-signing or Brock Lesnar coming back to WWE, all that kind of stuff. Everyone's just looking towards something else. They're looking towards July. They're looking towards August. They're looking towards live fans, SummerSlam, whatever. And maybe WWE just looked at this and said, no one cares. No one really cares about Hell in a Cell that much, realistically, Sunday. So why don't we make the most of it? Why don't we make the most of it? Instead of having it on Sunday, let's have it on SmackDown on Friday. Pleases Fox, does a good number, builds up some momentum, and we can tell this story on SmackDown as opposed to telling it on the pay-per-view, because the pay-per-view doesn't matter. And it's true, the pay-per-view doesn't matter. And I think, frankly, it probably opens up the situation to say that they probably want to do the WWE Championship in the main event of Hell in a Cell on Sunday. They don't really want to do a show where Reigns maybe isn't in the main event, and they feel like they're bumping him. So they'd rather Reigns still competing in a main event. So that main event just happens to be on SmackDown as opposed to Hell in a Cell on Sunday. So I think there's a couple of reasons there. But, I mean, that's just speculation on my part, I'll be honest, because every report that's come out basically says we don't know. The decision was just made, and they came out of the meeting, and the reason why, everyone just went, why not? Why not? So I think sometimes that's what it's like. Unfortunately, with the WWE creative process, it's just a case of why not, as opposed to why. You know, that's the strange analysis. But you look, in terms of the match overall, I think it was the match that we thought it was going to be. Very good. I mean, Roman Reigns versus Rey Mysterio, irrespective of being inside Hell in a Cell, would be very good. And I thought the match was enjoyable. There is obviously going to be some discussion on commercial breaks. We'll touch on that in a second. But I thought overall, excellent match. I thought very physical. I thought, to be honest, Mysterio got more offense in than I thought he would, frankly. I wouldn't have been surprised if we saw a situation similar to sort of Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso a couple of times where Roman Reigns just absolutely annihilated Rey Mysterio. Frankly, that was, again, part of my rationale as to thinking, why have they moved this to SmackDown on Friday as opposed to doing it on Sunday? I thought maybe they just want to make a statement, and the match is less of a match, more of a TV segment, in the sense that Reigns just beats the hell out of him. Mysterio gets zero offense in, and they go off the air with just Reigns absolutely decimating the Mysterio family like he's done over the course of the last few weeks. I thought, well, maybe that's why they've done it. It's because they're not really doing a match here. They're doing a TV segment. They're doing an angle. But they didn't do that. They just played up the match as they would. Again, Mysterio got quite a lot of offense in, frankly. A couple of near falls here and there, but nothing too dramatic. Like, again, it was never, ever, ever in question that Rey Mysterio was ever going to win this match. That was never, ever going to happen. And again, that's whether it happens on SmackDown on Friday or whether that happens on Hell in a Cell on Sunday. It just wasn't going to happen. But they had the classic Hell in a Cell spots. You know, Rey Mysterio got the fire extinguisher out. Rey Mysterio got the toolbox out, which is such a weird Hell in a Cell thing, isn't it? Just whenever there's a Hell in a Cell, there's a toolbox. There's always a toolbox under the ring. But for whatever reason it is, Hell in a Cell match, got to get that toolbox out. Yeah, I've got to get that toolbox out. Got to get that screwdriver where he's putting it through the ear of Jeff Hardy and your Randy Orton, whether it's Triple H and Kevin Nash back at Bad Blood 2003. That's a reference, by the way. But it's always the toolbox. Always a toolbox at Hell in a Cell. I mean, the Hell in a Cell structure is hung above the ring. I guess, are we supposed to believe that, I guess it was constructed earlier that day with that very same toolbox that they're now using as a weapon, right? Just very, very odd. But, early on in the match, in fairness, Mysterio, like I said, got arguably a surprising amount of offense. Realistically, a surprising amount of offense he got in on Roman Reigns, whether it was the fire extinguisher, whether it's steel chair, whether it was, again, the toolbox. And then eventually, and this is kind of the pattern, I think, at this point, Roman Reigns' matches at this point, certainly in terms of single matches, have hit a pattern, really, haven't they? In that the Reigns will dominate early on. It's the Brock Lesnar template, essentially, for matches. And I'm not just saying that because he's with Paul Heyman, but this is kind of the template now, in that Reigns dominates early on, the opponent fights back, couple of near falls, Reigns dominates, finish, bang. And I'm not criticizing that at all. If anything, I think the template, if it works, it works. And again, like I said, I thought Reigns actually took a surprising amount of offense realistically in this one, whether it was the fire extinguisher, whether it was the steel chairs to the back, whether it was the toolbox. At one point, Reigns sets up a table in the corner of the cell and goes for a spear. Mysterio gets out of the way, and Reigns just, eats it. I mean, really, really eats it on this spear. He just, the table explodes. Looked absolutely brutal. But then it felt like it was very strange that we went to a commercial break, and we'll touch on the commercial breaks in a second. And once we came back from the commercial breaks, that was just kind of it. We came back from the commercial breaks, suddenly Reigns is in control. Mysterio had a bit of a flurry. He went for he had Reigns down on the ground, had a steel chair on top of him, goes for a frog splash. It was a clever spot, actually, because obviously Dominic's been using the frog splash quite a lot. Mysterio's been using it for years as a tribute to Eddie Guerrero anyway. But Mysterio's been using it as a finish. They won the tag titles using that finish. And he did the frog splash on Roman Reigns, had the chair on top of him, hurt the ribs doing it, so he moves the chair out of the way, can't go for the cover because he's got the bad ribs, goes back up once again, does another frog splash, Reigns kicks out at 2, which was a pretty cool spot. And then finally they paid off the spot that Roman Reigns did last week with Dominic Mysterio. They paid that off pretty well, actually, in that they did the same spot that Reigns did to Dominic Mysterio. So, of course, last week they closed SmackDown by Roman Reigns powerbombing Dominic Mysterio from the inside of the ring to the outside of the ring. Now, of course, last week, the way they shot it, WWE's production is very good. The way they shot it, AEW could take some notes. They did the powerbomb where essentially Dominic Mysterio's powerbombed, lands on the outside of the ring, obviously on a crash mat. They didn't shoot it, but obviously on a crash mat. They zoom in on Reigns, pull the crash mat away. Dominic's on the floor. Dominic Sal's on the floor. That's how they went off the air last week with his father, Rey Mysterio looking over Dominic. Reigns gives him a kick to the head. I thought that was quite humorous. And they did the exact same spot tonight inside Hell in a Cell, except with no crash pad this time. Obviously, it's Hell in a Cell, and Reigns powerbombs Rey Mysterio from inside of the ring to the outside of the ring, and then Rey just absolutely eats it on the cell wall. Now, again, I don't think there was any kind of, landing apparatus there, because I'm just looking it back now because I can see it I've got the Twitter timeline in front of me. And he just eats it. It's a brutal bump. It really is a brutal bump. He just goes from inside of the ring to the outside of the ring, backs, arms flat out, and just drops down the cell. It's almost the equivalent of like a buckle bomb, realistically. Without having the turnbuckle there or the barricade, it's essentially the same bump that did Finn Balor's shoulder in. So Rey Mysterio takes a hell of a bump. He really does take a hell of a bump. It's a brutal spot, and Paul Heyman, to his credit, absolutely nailed it on the outside, because again, it's a brutal bump, but it's one of these bumps that you can watch at home, you go, man, that's rough. And this is what's great about returning to having live fans there and returning to touring next month, is that if there's a crowd there, the crowd takes that bump from a 7 or 8 to a 10. They do, because of their reaction, because of the oohs, because of the ahs, because of the silence, because of the whatevers. They absolutely take it up a notch, and Paul Heyman was really the conduit to that, because he had to be the audience for this bump. So Reigns powerbombs Mysterio from the inside of the ring to the outside of the ring, and Heyman just goes absolutely crazy on the outside. He's screaming, "Oh my God, oh my God!" It's reminiscent. I've almost hesitated to say it, but it's reminiscent of the Heyman reaction to when Brock Lesnar broke the Undertaker's undefeated streak. That kind of, "Oh my God, I can't believe what's just happened. Oh my God, oh my God." So that was certainly, again, absolutely vicious spot. And then as soon as he gets Rey Mysterio back up, he gets him, picks him up, takes him in the inside of the ring, locks in the guillotine, and Rey Mysterio which was interesting because we've seen the guillotine finish that Reigns has done. Most of the time he locks in the guillotine, the opponent passes out. Cesaro did it at WrestleMania Backlash, right? He didn't tap out, he passed out. We've seen that quite a few times. Whether it's Kevin Owens, whether it's, Daniel Bryan, whether it's, whoever. But Rey Mysterio didn't pass out. He tapped out immediately, which I always appreciate because in the world of MMA, you tend to see people tap out very quickly. Very, very rarely on the guillotine do you really see someone go limp. I mean, you see it. You do see it in terms of UFC and Bellator and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of the time you get people do the quick tap out because they realize you've got to live to fight another day. So I always appreciate it when they put in that kind of psychology. So Rey Mysterio, I thought it was interesting. He taps out straight away. One could argue, does that really tie into someone who's trying to avenge his son? If he's going to go down on his sword, surely he would pass out. But look, he decided to tap out straight away, puts Reigns over, and that's all this was. Any Roman Reigns match he's in right now is all about one thing, getting Roman Reigns over even more. Reigns hasn't lost a match singles. He's lost a tag match, but he hasn't lost a singles match since he returned last year. He is undefeated. He has yet to be pinned. He has yet to be submitted. And frankly, there is no one that is going to do that. There is nobody that's going to do that. There is nobody on the roster right now that I would argue is even worthy of that. John Cena's going to come back and face Roman Reigns at SummerSlam. He's not going to beat Roman Reigns. He's not. One, because he's not going to stick around that long. And again, it's all about getting Roman Reigns over even more. And he is over. He's the top guy in the company. He's the top guy on the roster. Previously, for all of these years when Reigns was having these WrestleMania main events, it was always debatable, wasn't it? It was always really debatable. Is Roman Reigns really the top guy? He's being pushed as the top guy, but is he really the top guy? Does he deserve the position he's in? Roman Reigns deserves it. He has earned it right now. He is the best thing going in WWE, bar none. I'm not just talking like the best thing on SmackDown. I'm not just talking the best thing on Raw, on NXT. He is the best thing WWE has right now. Heaven forbid he gets injured. Heaven forbid anything happens to him, because WWE, if Roman Reigns does go down with an injury or something like that, they are in so much trouble. So much trouble because they've got nothing. They have absolutely nothing else if it's not Roman Reigns right now. SmackDown is the Roman Reigns show. And you just take a look at Raw, a show without Roman Reigns, that's what you get. You get Monday Night Raw. You get a bad show. Roman Reigns is the best thing going in WWE today. And that's why nights like this are important, because it's continuously to put him over, to continue his push, his momentum. And as I mentioned, the only issue you could say right now when it comes to Roman Reigns is who on earth beats this guy? Who on earth is worthy of beating this guy? There isn't an argument. You could have said Big E and stuff like that. That's not ready right now. Again, John Cena, he's going to come back for SummerSlam, but then he'll go off to making more films, because that's the point in his life he's at right now. And if John Cena comes back and defeats Roman Reigns, then WWE, they've even screwed themselves even worse, because how does Roman Reigns recover from that? It's the part-time issue they had in the late 2000s, early teens. I mean, what do you call that? 2010s? That's the issue that they had there, is that the part-timers came back, beat these guys, and then they disappeared. And then suddenly the stars that you've got there that are full-time, 365 days a year, they look worthless. They look rubbish. That was the issue they had back then. They don't want to make the same mistake again. So John Cena isn't winning. Again, the only issue, I guess, with Roman Reigns right now is who on earth beats him? Who on earth beats him? I think he holds the Universal Championship until WrestleMania next year. And even then, you have to make a pretty good argument for someone to beat him. Again, because if he's facing The Rock ain't winning the Universal Championship next year. In the same vein that John Cena isn't winning the Universal Championship at SummerSlam. They're massive matches, absolutely. It's the John Cena versus Roman Reigns. By gosh, it's absolutely the biggest match WWE can do right now is John Cena versus Roman Reigns. There's nobody else bigger. I mean, The Rock isn't even on the table right now, so forget about it. Roman Reigns, John Cena is the biggest match they can do right now. The outcome, though, is like it was tonight. It's predictable in the sense that Roman Reigns will win because he has to, and Cena's not sticking around for that long. So I enjoyed the match. I enjoyed the match immensely tonight. I really did. Now, after the match, after the guillotine tap-out finish, out comes Jimmy Uso. This was really interesting because earlier on in the evening, there was a backstage segment between Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso. And Jimmy Uso comes up to Roman Reigns and he says, about like last week. And Roman Reigns says, look, where's your brother? And Jimmy Uso says, I don't know. I don't know where my brother is. He goes, I've tried to call him. I've tried to text him. I even went to his house. Can't find him. Bit alarming he's not at his house, by the way. I mean, just when he said that, I went to the crib and I couldn't find him. I just got the thing of like, did Jimmy Uso actually go inside? Is Jey Uso, hiding out in cupboards or in wardrobes, closets, looking out, going, is he gone? Is he gone? It's like, when someone comes to the door, but you don't want to answer. Is it a bit like that? I don't know. I thought that was a bit weird. But anyway, he says he can't find him. He hasn't heard from him all week. And he says, but, if you need my help tonight, I'm willing to give you the help. I acknowledge you. I'm willing to give you my help. And Reigns, as the premier gaslighter that he is, says, I don't want your help. I need your brother's help. And it's that subtle, the manipulation's already begun. The same manipulation that Jey Uso's been going through for 12 months, Jimmy Uso's already starting to get there. He's already starting to get there. And it did feel kind of like, something might happen after the match. And again, if they had done something after the match, I would have said, okay, that makes sense as to why they did the match tonight instead of Hell in a Cell on Sunday. Either way, so they have the finish, and out comes Jimmy Uso. He stares at Roman Reigns, and you're thinking, is something going to happen? Is something going to happen? Raises the arm of Roman Reigns, and I'm thinking, right, he's going to raise the arm, and then he's just going to back. He's going to super kick him, or Roman Reigns is going to Superman punch him. We're going to have some kind of angle here, and we didn't. He raised the arm of Roman Reigns. He stood with Roman Reigns, as you can see on the screen right there. And then Rey Mysterio, I guess again, because he didn't pass out, he tapped out immediately. He gets back to his feet, and Roman Reigns was infuriated by this. He was absolutely furious that Rey Mysterio could even dare get back to his feet. He couldn't believe it. He was incredulous with rage that Rey Mysterio could get back to his feet. So once again, chokes him out. And again, I thought, okay, we're going to have Jimmy Uso come over and say, oh, no, enough's enough. Don't choke him out. Don't do that. No, he waited. He watched him by. So one could guess, you could argue now, is Jimmy Uso, is he now involved? Has he acknowledged him? Has he done the turn? Is he fully in line with Roman Reigns? Has he acknowledged him? Is he a heel? If he has, and it's a big if, but if he has, I don't think they've paid that off. You've got weeks and weeks of tension, weeks and weeks of, I'm not buying into it, I'm not acknowledging you, you don't control me, blah, 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 I want to team with my brother, I want to do this, I want to do that. For him just randomly one week to be like, okay, yeah, fine, I get it. That feels odd. With the Jey Uso thing, Reigns had to almost beat it into him, and he hasn't with Jimmy Uso. Like, Jimmy Uso was rebellious, and then one day, no. I find that just a bit odd, and it makes you wonder, okay, maybe seeds are planted. I still think Money in the Bank, and this is part of the reason I thought maybe they pivoted to Reigns versus Mysterio for Hell in a Cell, because they wanted to save this for the live crowd. I still think we get Reigns versus Jimmy Uso for the Universal Championship. I think maybe they just decided to save that for Money in the Bank because there's going to be a live crowd there and they can really get across the emotion, because I think there's more to be told there from that side of the story. And, Jey Uso's disappeared, and I think maybe that disappearance is going to coincide with Jimmy Uso versus Reigns, and then Jey Uso's going to show up and maybe cost his brother, and then eventually they will all fall in line and we'll have the heel bloodline. But I think we're going to take some time to get there. I think that's where we're going. So I still think that the Jimmy Uso thing hasn't been resolved with Roman Reigns yet, even though the image at the end of SmackDown would say opposite to that. But I don't think so, because if they have just decided, okay, Jimmy's now in line, again, they've paid nothing off. They teased, and then they delivered nothing. That doesn't make any sense to me. Now, one thing I will say before we wrap things up here, because like I said, I don't want to keep you guys too long tonight, because I know Dynamite is on right now. One thing I did want to talk about before we wrap things up is commercials, because I saw a lot of criticism on social media about the commercials in this match. What I would say about this, because I kind of rolled my eyes. Look, I am with you. I am totally with you in the sense that commercials are frustrating. They're frustrating just in general, let alone in pro wrestling, let alone in any programming, right? That's why streaming services like Netflix, like Hulu, like Amazon Prime, like Disney Plus, that's why they're on the rise. In addition to being able to watch things on demand, you don't have to worry about commercials. You don't have to worry about stopping and having a cliffhanger and then repeating all this stuff. Commercials are a bore, especially in the world of pro wrestling, because when you've got a big match that goes across multiple segments like this, we had it numerous times last year. I recall back to AJ Styles versus Daniel Bryan last year in the final of that Intercontinental Championship tournament. And it lasts like 45 minutes, but that meant we had something ridiculous like 4 commercial breaks during that match, and it hurt the match. It does hurt the match. The reason it hurts the match, of course, is because you get invested into the match. You're enjoying it, near falls, you're excited, you're feeling the emotion, and then you go to commercial. It's 3-4 minutes. You come back, it's like a reset. You have to get invested all over again. That journey that you were on, being invested and not thinking about the world of pro wrestling, and not thinking about anything else, just focusing on the action, just focusing about the story, just focusing about the emotion or whatever. You have to go on that journey over again, and it's difficult. It's very difficult for the pro wrestlers because they have to get you invested over again. It's like this. It's constantly like this. It's so stop-start. It's like having 4 separate matches, right? That's essentially what it's like. If you've got 4 commercials, it's like having 4 separate matches because you have to get the viewers invested in again, and you have to go back on the journey. So it is frustrating, and obviously it did hurt the match. Commercials hurt every match they're in. I don't think any commercial has ever benefited any pro wrestling match. They just haven't. But for people to complain about it and say, oh, commercials, why did they have commercials in it? Well, what did you expect? You were watching television. You were watching Fox. I mean, frankly, I don't want to turn this into a, US versus, UK thing, but even American television in comparison to British television over here, I mean, I really sympathize, frankly, for my American subscribers out there because you have far more adverts than we do in terms of our television broadcast. I mean, you really do tell when you watch an American broadcast of stuff. But for people to complain about that, for people to say, oh, I can't believe there's commercials, all this kind of stuff, what do you expect? If it's going to be on free television, you can't have the best of both worlds, unfortunately. That's why I say, get yourself a bit of a head start. Have it on a delay of 30 minutes, then you can fast forward through those commercials. Because otherwise, if you're going to, have a match on free TV, if you're going to have a match on network television, you don't have to pay for it, WWE's got to make their money elsewhere. If it's not going to be the consumer paying for it in terms of paying for the service to watch it, i.e. paying for the Peacock subscription service or the WWE Network subscription service, they've got to make their money elsewhere. How do they make it? Television rights and commercials. That's how they make the money. So for people to get upset that there are commercials on free television, it's what do you expect? That's television. I guess you're just getting angry at TV at that point. Now, obviously, they could have done ways around it. I will give you that one. They could have done, AEW's very good for it. NXT's good for it as well. They could have done picture-in-picture. That is true. They could have said, we know it's such a big main event, and we understand that it's the first time. I mean, they hyped it up enough that it's the first ever Hell in a Cell match in SmackDown history. It's the first ever Hell in a Cell match in network history. Because of the importance, because of its historic nature, we're going to do a picture-in-picture. They could have done that. Or they could have done a situation where they said, again, because of its historic nature, because it's the first ever Hell in a Cell match in SmackDown history, because it's the first ever Hell in a Cell match in network history, we're going to have limited commercial interruption, we're going to have 1 commercial break or something like that. They certainly could have done ways around it. I think the reason they didn't do that is because, again, they only decided to do this yesterday. If they had decided a week ago they were going to have Roman Reigns versus Rey Mysterio in the main event of SmackDown on the go-home show to Hell in a Cell, inside Hell in a Cell for the Universal Championship, if they'd have decided that a week ago, chances are they probably would have had picture-in-picture or limited commercial interruption. They'd have figured something out. But when you've only figured it out, 24 hours, less than 24 hours before the show, you've kind of put yourself into a corner at that point. And again, it is frustrating as a consumer, as a viewer, as someone who's enjoying the match and someone that's getting invested in the match. It is frustrated when they say, right, we've got to go to commercial. But that's TV, unfortunately. That's just how it works. And I think people that are getting angry about that, they're also the same people that are very much enjoying the fact that a Hell in a Cell match is on free television and they don't have to pay for it. So it really is a swings and roundabout situation. It's about what you want. And again, I know there are some people that are still frustrated. I can't believe they put it on free TV. And I can't believe they've ruined the Hell in a Cell concept. The Hell in a Cell concept's been dead for a long time. If you're going to get angry about Hell in a Cell matches not mean anything, you are about 5 or 10 years too late. The moment they made the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, the concept was dead. Hell in a Cell matches meant something when there wasn't a pay-per-view surrounding it. When it was just a match that was for a specific feud, or a feud that had been going on a long period of time, or the storyline or the feud warranted it, and you maybe had one a year or one every 2 years. That's when Hell in a Cell meant something. Once you've got a pay-per-view gimmick around it, and it's the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, and you're guaranteed to have a Hell in a Cell match at that event every single year, you're going to get to a point like WWE had, and that you get to that pay-per-view, and there's no storylines, there's no matches that are worth the Hell in a Cell match. But it's the Hell in a Cell match pay-per-view, so they've got to give you a Hell in a Cell match. And then you get worthless Hell in a Cell matches and matches that don't belong inside Hell in a Cell. So the Hell in a Cell concept, in terms of, I can't believe they ruined it and put it on free TV while they're trying to kill the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, or the Hell in a Cell match rather, that's been dead a long time. And frankly, I'm not sure how much I believe in that, because the Hell in a Cell match has been on Raw a couple of times back in 1998. So again, that's not the worst thing in the world. So I had no problem with it being on SmackDown tonight. I really didn't. And frankly, I really enjoyed the match. I enjoyed it immensely. I thought it was a great main event. Again, the outcome, not surprising. It's to be expected. But an enjoyable match nevertheless. But look, guys, I said we would keep this relatively short because I know Dynamite's on the TV right now. So look, guys, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on Roman Reigns defeating Rey Mysterio inside Hell in a Cell tonight on SmackDown on Fox? Let me know your thoughts in the live chat, or if you're watching on demand, in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Got the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. And I'll speak to you again